I'm back with the OG, triple OG, Josh from the 047 Sports Cards and TCG. Today we have a bunch of informative topics that can help you make more money. We talk about sending cards to consigners to help maximize profits and limit the amount of work you have to do to sell cards. We talk about Gamestop's new partnership with PSA and how that may be a great avenue to send your cards to get graded. As always, I hope you enjoy this video. All right, everybody. I've got the man back on the channel. I got Josh from the 047 Sports Cards and TCG. Today is going to be a good episode. A lot of really good information. A lot of topics that I think not a lot of people really know about, especially when it comes to selling. So thanks for coming on the channel this week, Josh.
Hey, always appreciate it, Zach. You know, I'm a big fan of yours and personally and on YouTube. So just excited to chop it up with you here on a bunch of different topics.
Oh yeah, we got a bunch of fun topics today. We're gonna start it off with talking about cards because that's what we do, man. We're in the hobby. We're talking about cards, and you actually brought this up the other day, and I was really interested to kind of see your perspective on this. And this is actually a card that I really didn't even know existed. So we'll go ahead and go to the screen share here and show the people a little bit of this. And we're talking about the 2011 Topps John Jones and Anderson Silva of 25 dual auto matte relic. So we've got the spider here on the front, and then if you turn it around, or really any way you go, you got a guy on the front. You got John Jones there as well. So what's your thoughts on this right here, man?
Well, and the reason I wanted to bring it up and talk with you and just talk, you know, have the audience look at something like this is just, even though it's a sticker dual auto, the uniqueness of this card is just beyond cool. And it's like some of the things that in UFC world, you know, I really want to focus on moving forward, and I'll give you why, because it has more historical context than a lot of people understand. This is actually a redemption too. So this was you got a redemption card, and you had to send it in to Topps to get this redemption back, and you can see with the seal.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a UFC 126. So this was Silva and Jones co-main events.
Nice.
And it was Jones versus Bader, Darth Bader. And at that time too, Zach, Bader was undefeated. I think he was like 8-0 or something like that, and Jones was 11-1, and I mean Jones got him to submit, really fast, and he was just coming off too. Bader was coming off like being the the Ultimate Fighter Season 8 champion or something of that nature, but he had won a couple other fights too. So Jones made short work of Bader, and then Silva, with probably the most devastating face kick that I've ever seen in a fight, knocked the hell out of Belfort, and ended that fight quickly too. So to have a duel out of 25, and the Jones one on this particular card has the multicolor,
Yep.
which I sent you the picture too of, Zach.
Right here.
It's like you can specifically.
Yeah, it was one of these right here.
Yeah, there's only one thing on that mat for that fight that relic could have come from. I mean, and so it's that, and they're still around today, I believe. Synergy 6.
Yeah, Syntha 6. I used to drink this, man. Back when I was a kid and I was trying to get bulked up. I was super skinny, athletic guy. Couldn't ever gain any weight, so I'd be chugging this in the kitchen. It was disgusting, by the way, but yeah, that's awesome.
But and you can see too, just from the photo, like a majority of the fight was fought in that area too. Mm-hmm. So that kind of adds some prominence, to the card. So when I'm looking at like UFC, like high-end cards, and we were talking, several months ago about I was saying like there's going to be a card someday that UFC is going to top a $100,000 card. Mm-hmm. I just think these cards, like this specifically, and this came from a Moment of Truth in 2011, I believe. It was a redemption. It's got dual relics from the actual fight of UFC 126. I know it's got a sticker auto, and I'm not, I really don't like sticker autos, but this has got that front and back unique, card, along with being a redemption, that just makes this like super valuable. And it's got listed for $5,000. To be honest with you, Zach, I look at this card a lot more based on just everything that I was telling you from a historical context
Hmm.
of what this card embodies, not just from the card side, but also from like actual history UFC side. And there's not too many cards that have, Silva and Jones as, co-main events on the same card where, it had two like really interesting, cool fights too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, this
So,
is this is awesome, man. And this is one of those where every now and then I'll run over like a really big card, and I'll stumble upon a really big card that for whatever reason I haven't ever seen, or I haven't seen people necessarily talking about it. Why do you think this card in particular is a little bit slept on, and I haven't really seen many people showing these around? Do you think it's the rarity? Do you think it's the redemption? What's kind of the reasoning there, do you think?
well, I think it's the front and back. I think that's
Hmm.
the key. It's kind of, difficult, and we see this sort of like in the basketball cards too back in the day where they would do like Jordan and Bryant, Kobe Bryant on the front and the back of a card. I think it's super cool. I think a lot of like hardcore collectors, like they like to see the card, whether if it's a dual auto, it being, on the same front surface, so
Right.
you see both autos. I think that sort of takes away from a lot of collectors' mindset with it. But to me, I think it's super cool when you can turn this card around and rather than seeing like this was produced by Topps, blah 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 blah, you
Yeah.
actually see another goat on the card, and it being a redemption, you mean somebody had to turn this in to get this card, and not all the redemptions were turned in. So I think it's even rarer than out of 25. I think there's only, I would say, probably a handful, maybe 5 to 10 that probably exist of this card. So I don't know. To me personally, as a UFC collector, this is my sweet spot. This when I came across this, that's why I sent it to you. I was like, man, if I could own that card, that would
Yeah.
be kick butt. You know what I mean? But people don't talk about these type of cards. You know what I mean? So that's why I wanted to bring it up too.
Yeah, I love it, man. Big card. We're talking about 5 grand. Definitely a big card. Next, we'll keep it in the talking about money, and we'll talk about selling cards. I was actually able. I'm going to kind of make a video about it. This year has been a really good year for selling for me, and it's kind of got me thinking like, man, I should really try and continue to up my sales volume. More sales equals buying big cards like that, right? And I kind of wanted to bring up the concept of like consignment and consigning with specific companies. I know that you do that a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
So go ahead and tell people what consigning is, kind of why they should do it, and then we'll kind of talk them through how that process goes.
Sure. So, I mean, I would say the big three consigners outside of your golden auction, your different auction houses that are specialized just in consignment and that's their thing. I'm talking like on eBay. Let's talk specifically so we're reaching the general masses. It's Probstein, it's ComC, and it's DC Sports 87. And what you're doing there is you're sending your cards to them. They are selling those cards for you. They have a special arrangement with eBay to where they're not paying, they're getting a better cut of the percentage of the money at the end of the day than you would selling the card on your own. So that's why each consignment house is allowed to offer you, almost more in some cases than you would actually get selling the card on your own in eBay. So I think that's a big positive. The big positive too, I'll say with ComC that that's now just came to fruition at the end of December and here in January is now if that you can build up your bank account sort of when you sell in ComC, and you can if you buy another ComC card, you can immediately send it through ComC to go to get graded by PSA, which
Hmm.
I think is a really really neat service that they do. And then ComC also partners with Blowout Cards, which myself, I mean that's my referral when I think about wax of getting the best prices on it. So they have a neat thing, and then DC Sports 87 really I think specializes in those auctions to really draw a lot of eyes at one time during a week, and they do a fast processing PayPal. I mean, it's just you get tons of more eyes looking at your cards
Yeah.
than you would you selling it yourself. And the only I could drawback of all that consigning is probably just you have to have a lot of cards. You got to do it in bulk. Now look, have I done a consignment where I've done like an order of 20 cards? Yes, But the majority of times when I send stuff to consignment, I'm doing a couple hundred cards at minimum, just
What
because
what
it
what
saves
what
shipping. Go ahead.
Josh, what price are you sending these cards? Like value wise, like I have a lot of cards that are like $5 to $20. Are you sending those? Are these all like pretty big, 3-digit, 4-digit cards? Like what's kind of the thought value in sending to DC Sports or sending to ComC, like price
Okay.
wise for the cards?
And that's a great question. I would say your ComC cards are more cards that are going to sit for a little while. That may not sell as fast, but they will sell. DC Sports 87, I would say probably go to them for a little bit of more, maybe your slabs or your higher end cards. But I will say this, and I sold, just under 5,000 cards between ComC and DC last year. And I will tell you that the sweet spot, at least overarchingly, seems to be within that $10 to $25 card range.
Okay.
Those cards sell pretty quick. Now, look, have I sold, a couple $100 cards on DC Sports 87? Back in the day, I sold a lot of Joe Burrows that were, above $500. So there's a lot of different things that I've seen in terms of sales and how things, how the eyes and the people bidding on those auctions go. But I would tell you, my sweet spot, at least last year, was if I had a $10 to $15 card, or even a $10 to $25 card. I mean, those things, I was getting those in, to either one of those, and they were selling pretty fast.
All right, perfect. You heard it here first, guys. That's a good way to get rid of cards, $10 to $25. That's good news, man, because I got a lot of cards that are, comping around that price. And I wanted to talk to you first before I send some of those off, just to make sure that I'm sending them to the right areas. Sounds like that's perfect. What's the process like getting the cards to them? Is it just penny, top loader, throw it in a box and send it? Is it pretty simple?
Well, they're going to list it how you send it. So,
Okay.
and yes, both of them want it all in top loaders. And penny sleeves if you can. But if you just want to put it in a top loader, to be honest with you, I've done that before, and just send it. You can do that as well. But yeah, I mean, you want the presentation of them to be good, because they're going to process it fairly quick when they get it, and they're taking their own pictures and stuff, and you just don't want any smudge. I would just say, clean it up like you would normally do if you were selling
Right.
it to a normal seller. But yeah, be conscious of it, I would say.
Okay, sweet, man. So we talked a little bit about how to ship it. I wanted to get your thoughts process on kind of the payout here and show people kind of the deduction that they're going to take.
Yeah.
So we know that when we're consigning right on DC Sports 87, I'm sure people have seen listings, for cards, and they get a ton of views, a ton of watchers, and sometimes it's kind of a bidding war with some of those. So we know that we're getting a premium on like the attention that the card's getting, but it does look like they're also going to take more from the sale. So kind of what's your thought process on that? Do you think in your experience that the more eyes leads to comparable or even more of a sale, even though they are taking more than the 13% that eBay's getting?
Correct. It balances itself out, because you would probably sell your card for less, Zach, and you would get less, but they got more eyes, so they'll sell it for a little more, and you'll get to where you want to be. So that's how I would phrase it. You're not going to be stuck in terms of what you're getting financially back on the consignment. I don't, plus you got to factor in too is you got to factor in your own time, your own shipping, your own dealing with the customer. Like, you don't have to do any of that through consignment.
It's a good point.
So that saves, I look at time as part of, my card hobby too. I don't want my valuable time being spent on dealing with a $10 card. I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah.
I want somebody else to take care of that. I just want to get the cut at the end of the day. And I'll tell you, like, for example, like I would say the majority of cards, let's say I sold a card for like $10. It would usually end up being like, I would be, the rates have changed a little bit, but it'd be like $8.20 I would get back, and then minus 50 or 75 cent listing fee. And it'd end up around $7.50, $8, somewhere in that vicinity, depending on where it was. So it works out, I'm telling you. It's just a peace of mind that you have too, where it's not you can follow the auction, but you're not having to deal with stuff.
Yeah. It's hands off.
That makes a big difference. Yeah.
Nice, man. Okay, cool. So hopefully that was helpful for a lot of people. I know that's very helpful for me. That's something that I've been wanting to pick your brain on. So it's good to kind of get a little bit of clarity here. As far I know you said you sold like 5,000 cards. What do you have any data on like what the average price was or like the highest price or anything like that?
Yeah, the highest that I sold was just under $400, and the average, and I had some low ones too because I just got some cards that I like, $5 that I just wanted to get rid of.
Yeah.
But these were part of large. Think about this too, Zach. These were part of large collections that I bought that I have already sold off the key cards of those collections, and this was just straight profit. So I would say the majority of what I got back per card, I have it here. It's like a right around in between $8 and $9. Is
Nice.
where I averaged. So if you
Yeah.
factoring, I'll let you do the math on four
Yeah,
to
that's a
five
lot.
thousand
That's a
cards. Yeah.
lot.
So yeah. So
Cool, man.
that's why
That's
I think
awesome.
too. That's why I think it's important to like, if you can, on the buying side to sell, to try and buy bulk collections as a whole. And to get some key cards where you can get your money back and then use the rest of the collection for profit. So on that front, that's I like to be in that world where I'm buying not just a single here and there, where I'm buying multiple cards or something.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it because whenever I see, sometimes I'll see people listing, a ton of cards in a lot, and I'm just like, man, even if I could make money on this, that's so much money or time, spent trying to flip and list everything. So this kind of cuts out the negative of that completely. Um,
Correct.
Next, let's talk about. I was excited to talk about this with you, man, because this is a problem that I've had running into this issue with not wanting to send cards to PSA, not liking that entire process. There's a lot of friction there, and I'll pull up the screen share here. If you guys are not aware, I'm sure most of y'all are. GameStop is now grading cards, and they're offering a program where you basically bring the card in and they grade it for you. I know Josh was one of the first people to let me know about this. But what are your thoughts on this, man? And who do you think this is for?
Well, I think this is for the casual collector. So, and right now, predominantly, Zach, it's a lot of TCG that are people that are doing, going through GameStop. And I did a video on my channel too when GameStop, last year, if they started the partnership. I just wanted to go in and try and actually sell some cards. I didn't submit cards for grading, but
Mhm.
sell some cards because they were buying PSA cards, and it was just a little too new at the moment for them at that time. But look, here's the bottom line. Nat Turner, CEO of PSA, is on their board. He has a 10% equity in GameStop. This is not going to be a thing that goes away. Now, and I think to your point and to a lot of people's points is, look, how many hands do I have to put my cards into to get graded at the end of the day? I think that's always the concern. Like, if I got to take it to GameStop, they're shipping it to California, and and then it's coming back, and then I got to go pick it up. Like how many people are touching my cards because you're trying to you know eliminate or get down to that so you can have the cleanest submission you can have possible. I will tell you, and this is just anecdotal information, at least locally. I've had several collectors who have went to GameStop and submitted cards for PSA. Now, not high-end cards, mind you, Zach, but just general cards that they wanted to
Yeah.
see how the process worked and things like that. And every single one of them has came back and said, it was a great experience. Now,
Nice. That's good to hear.
that could just be my local area. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some horror stories out there because if you're doing anything, with PSA, you're going to have some type of horror stories at some point. But I will say that I was encouraged to hear some of those stories, and for the person like me, who does not ever want to buy a PSA membership, um, this is something that I think is an avenue to submit your cards through.
Why, why,
I use a
why, why,
Go ahead.
why don't you want to buy a PSA membership? What's the
Well,
reasoning there?
I think it's partly principle.
Yeah.
I just don't feel like I should have to pay $150 a year to send my cards in for grading.
Yeah, and then you're
SGC
paying,
does
and then you're still paying the grading price per card. So it's like,
correct.
yeah,
Well, and PSA tries to bump up the membership. They give you breaking credit. X, Y, and Z. They give you a card ladder. They give you they got with One Piece now, and they're sending out $100 card to help boost
Hmm.
your. It's just for me personally, in my whole history of card grading, I use a bulk subber here that's close near me, um, and he handles all my PSA subs, and I've always been happy with him. But this is something too, as an individual route, that if I'm just trying to learn or get into grading, I think stopping at your local GameStop and
Yeah.
trying it out is worth a shot.
Yeah, man. It really seems like it's literally as easy as, wipe your cards down with a microfiber at home, penny sleeve, top loader, and then card saver if you want. Drop it off at GameStop, and then you're wait till it gets back to you. Like, that's crazy. And that next time I grade cards, I am going to try it through GameStop, and I'm excited to see kind of how it turns out.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see more of this too, Zach. It's not just going to be GameStop. Like hobby shops or card shops. I don't know if it's like you're in Texas in your area, but like in my area, you got some card shops that'll, they submit the PSA. They're a bulk subber, so they submit the PSA and SGC and all that stuff. I think you're going to see more pockets of people submitting, setting up to be able to submit. Because at the bottom line of out of all this, Zach, is uh, PSA wants every single card graded. Period.
Yeah, they want the money.
They don't care that we're in a junk slab era. They
Yeah,
don't care what it is. They want your cards and they want it graded, and they're going to do as much as they can on the front lines to make it as easy as possible for you. And I think GameStop is like one iteration of that. I think we'll
yeah.
probably see some more as the relationship, as PSA starts thinking about other things to do, because they're trying to get all the market, the entire market. So
Yeah. Well, so you use the bulk submission right now with card shops and whatnot. Do you think you're going to continue to do that? Is it cheaper to do that through local card shops, or is it cheaper and maybe more efficient to go through GameStop? What are you going to do in the future?
I'm definitely going to keep my bulk subber. I'm going to continue to use him. He's been tremendous. He's been doing it for 25 years. I'm lucky. I got an incredible relationship with that person, and I trust my cards and everything, financials, everything with him. So yeah, I think that's part of it. But I say this, but will I try and get some maybe of those cheaper cards or cheaper flips? Might I go to GameStop to try and test it out and work through that? Yeah, I think I would do. I am going to do that, especially on the TCG side. But like lower end UFC cards, I don't see why not. You wouldn't want to go
Yeah.
to GameStop. The only thing I probably hesitate a little bit using GameStop would be like on higher end stuff. I don't know if I would trust it right now. It's just like you got a GameStop employee and those folks handling it. I don't
Yeah.
want them maybe handling $1,000 card at the moment,
I've
but
thought
maybe
about
this
that
part.
too.
Yeah, but maybe this partnership grows and grows and grows, and they start bringing in hired PSA trained employees and things like that. We don't know how this is going to unfold in the future, so I think there's a lot of potential, and I think GameStop is not the only one that's going to end up being doing this. That's for sure.
Nice, man. I love it. I'm excited to continue to hear people either use GameStop or continue to hear feedback. And, hopefully most feedback is good, because that would be super convenient for me. I have a GameStop down the way, and are they also selling products there? That's also, I think, what I heard online. So they're
They're
continuing to kind of push into more of the card shop space, really, as long with games.
correct. They're getting a lot of Topps allotments in terms of wax and stuff like that. So and it's fairly priced too. So there's a lot of stuff that that relationship is being worked in different angles. So I think it's a positive. Like I said, the more access that you have to grading and cards locally, to where you don't have to go through the Walmart, Target craziness of
Yeah.
people, stalking out the times to get your cards and stuff like that. I think that makes it a lot easier and makes the hobby better. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I might have to go visit and just kind of see what kind of stuff they have in the inventory, and maybe chat up some of the employees there and kind of see what they think about the whole PSA shipping off, and kind of how familiar they are with it, and just what their
And
thoughts are in general.
and just remember, it's not just the grading. They also actually buy PSA cards, graded cards too. So if you have some junk slabs too that you come across within a collection and you just want to unload it, GameStop's go bye-bye. Now, they're not going to give you a great percentage,
Yeah.
obviously, but if you're just trying to move stuff and you don't care about it, that's another option as well. So
Nice, man. We got GameStop in the mix. I thought you had a really funny video the other day, and everybody go check out Josh's channel if you haven't already. The link will be in the description. And it was kind of like, how do on the field or not, how do off the field incidents affect card pricing? How do they affect superstardom? And what kind of the public opinion on athletes that get into jail related things or just criminal mischief, and how that affects card prices? And you have come to the right place, because in our sport and in what we collect over here in the UFC, we have Conor McGregor and John Jones, two of, aptly named Conor McGregor, the notorious one. And he's got, I'll skim through, before we get into it, I'll skim through some of his arrest records here. So he's speeding all over the place in 2017, Josh. He's throwing the bus at Khabib and all the fighters in 2018. He's doing lewd conduct 2018. He's throwing people's phone. He's punching the old man. Everybody knows about that. All sorts of stuff, dude. And how do you think that affects card pricing with what people are doing off the field and out of the octagon?
I think it's a great question. And in my video that you referenced too, I focused on John Jones and his rap sheet, which is a mile long. But here's the thing, and this is where I had to pull back on this, in this component thought of, and like we talked to, Zach, is like in the UFC world, it's a little more, I don't know, allowed or expected, of someone to have, I guess, indiscretions off the field, out of the octagon, that type thing. And it's sort of become an accepted thing. And what I always boil down to when push comes to shove is sales. So is Conor McGregor and John Jones sales retreating from anything that they do, outside of the octagon? No. In fact, Conor McGregor stuff is probably one of the most consistent selling cards and memorabilia and autographs and everything you can think of with Conor McGregor. I mean, it's still hugely popular. Not to me. I don't own any Conor McGregor. I don't want to own any Conor McGregor. And I sort of have that thing too with John Jones, and that's why I made the videos, because like I don't know how I feel about John Jones, even though I know he's the GOAT. It's just like there's so much, so much stuff with him.
Yeah,
it's just
a lot of baggage.
You got to take it in. Yeah. But at the end of the day, do people push that aside and say, you know what, it doesn't matter? Even if he took steroids, it doesn't matter. It's like it was that era or whatever. So it's just like those things don't matter. But when you go to baseball, or especially baseball, but if you go to baseball, basketball, some of these other sports, and you're, Wander Franco or you're Fernando Tatis or Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire or Barry Bonds or any of these people that have had issues off the baseball diamond or off the field, well, their card prices just sink like crazy and they stay there forever. UFC is not built that way, and I don't know. I think it's a very interesting dynamic. I think it's worth talking about more and more. I don't know what it would take, to be honest with you, for people to stop buying, John Jones cards or Conor McGregor cards. Do they have to be in jail, to officially, like people say, I can't buy that anymore? Do they have to murder somebody for them to say, I'm not buying the cards? But even that, O.J. Simpson cards still sell.
That's what I was going to say. That might actually boost Conor's cards if he absolutely murdered somebody. Yeah, no, great topic, man. Whenever I saw your video, it immediately came to mind, like, these guys are literally fighting another human being as their job, and they've been doing that their entire life. So, like, I think as fans of fighting, it's very violent in nature, it's very brash in nature. Even the way that the UFC runs the company, right? Like, it's getting a little more fine-tuned, but even the way they run the company, people are cussing on the mic, they're dropping F-bombs in interviews. Like, it's not really they're not buttoned up, I guess is the right word. And so, like, for John Jones to have all of these out of the octagon incidents, for Conor to have all the same out of the octagon incidents, I think that the fans react to it much differently than like a normal sport where you don't even touch your opponent. Like even in football, you know, we saw Ray Rice. It's not necessarily collecting related, but like he was able to come back. Rashee Rice, Tyreek Hill. Like football has got a ton of guys also, and I think maybe because of the physicality, because of the violence of the sport of both MMA and NFL, maybe we give athletes a little more grace. But yeah, really interesting topic, and I don't think anything they could do besides being like maybe locked up for long term would like really hurt their card sales, honestly.
Well, and I think too that it brings up a more like broader question of you as a collector. So,
Yeah.
like, do you associate with that particular person in that realm? Do you collect a bunch? Now, look, I keep bringing up John Jones because I just, you know, to me he's the GOAT, and I own some cards, but I don't know that I would own a ton of John Jones cards. You know what I mean? It's like there's a certain point with me where like I will own enough to like I got my money for the GOAT, and that's it. Same thing with like, you know, Anderson Silva's, you know, for a long period is fine with me too. But some of the other people, you know, it's just it's tough for me to sort of get in the headspace of, you know, owning their cards like a whole huge collection. Like
Right.
that's my PC of
PC.
Of who I can't do that. You know what I mean?
No, that makes sense because you're kind of supporting, you're kind of like championing and supporting that athlete, you know. So if it's like if they're doing all this crazy stuff outside, then you're kind of almost condoning or like celebrating that in a sense as well.
Correct. And I'll even say like just on the Dana White card specific things.
Yeah.
And I've told you this before. Like it's kind of weird. Like I sort of give a little bit of grace to John Jones and some of these other folks, but like Dana White, I have no desire to ever own his cards or his autos or anything like that ever. You know, so it's a character thing sometimes with me.
Yeah.
But the dynamic within that is just so weird, especially in UFC. It's just I don't know. It's just it's like everybody's different, you know, in that regard. And I think that's what kind of makes the hobby cool, Zach. It's like everybody collects their certain things and is into certain stuff and is okay with some things and is not okay with some other stuff. And I think it's all open, you know, open the door to everybody. And that's the only way you're going to get real collectors involved is if they're collecting everybody. If they're not just, you know, sticking to just one person. And if that person has a major character flaw, then, you know, they can't collect other, I don't know, you know what I mean? So
yeah, no, 100%. And me and you have had talks about Uncle Dana many times, and that needs to be a whole video, a separate video on its own, honestly, because we've been critiquing Dana and what he's doing with the UFC. Kind of maybe we disagree with some of his moves and some of his antics and promotion and whatnot, but I still got a Dana, dude. I got it over there. Where is it? Right here behind me. One of those things, man. It's I feel he's so important to the formation of the sport. I feel like I got to get one for the future.
Oh, no doubt. I totally agree with you on that. Without Dana White, there is no UFC. Let's make that real clear. But like I said, it's just, you know, do I want to own a card of someone who's out there slapping his wife in public? It's, you know, and it just...
It sounds crazy when you say it like that.
Well, I mean...
It's true, though. It's true. Yeah. And you could say that about all of Connor's things. You could say that about all of John's things. It's like, really, you want to own you're a champion of this guy that's done all of this stuff? Like, that's... No, so I completely understand. And a very interesting topic.
And I'm probably being, you know, everybody's like, well, why are you giving grace to John Jones and Connor and not to Dana? And like, I am letting you know too. Like, I feel like I'm personally flawed by letting some go and not letting some go. You know, but I think everybody's sort of like that. It's just like a preference thing at the end of the day, and what your values are as a collector and as a person and things like that. And you know, it's weird. That's all I can say. It's weird, and it's unlike any other sport.
I think that's the more important. Yeah. I think that's the most important thing is that, I mean, you could say this about anything within the UFC world. Like, it is a very unique, like, I always try and draw comparisons, right? I'm like, okay, what's NBA doing? Okay, what's NFL doing? And then I'll kind of look at things and I'm like, this is, we disobey so many like rules that everyone else follows, which is really funny and really unique. And it's kind of, and it is kind of fun as well. And in my opinion, you could do whatever you want with your cards, man. You could buy whatever you want. I'm not going to judge you for it. I mean, there's probably some people have the ability to separate the art from the artist. And a lot of times I am that way, and that, you can say what you want about somebody as a human, but like when they've dedicated so much of their life to music or fighting or sports or blah, 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 whatever, like, I think some people are able to separate that and just respect the craft and the greatness for what it is. So collect what you want, end of the day. But it is odd that their prices never go down no matter what they do. All right, Josh, I want to get your thoughts. Man, on, we're in 2025 now. Last time I talked to you was 2024. We've had a couple of products released since then. So far, what are kind of your just broad scope? What are your thoughts on how 2024 went so far with the UFC releases?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I really was encouraged, and I know not everybody was a huge fan of it, but of Gold Label at the end of the year, I, the price point and maybe the parallels weren't as great, but I just felt like maybe that was the start of something.
Yeah.
Moving into 2025 in terms of maybe getting a little more narrowed in to what I think UFC can be in terms of tops and cards and pricing and people's interest in some of these things. So I was encouraged. I don't, 2025 is going to be really interesting because we're really going to see the whole spectrum of what Tops is willing to do with, the UFC license now. I feel like they got more than a year to plan this out. So I feel like this has got to be the bang for the buck in terms of we need to see some really kick butt products at a really, kick butt price and have some really cool hits that everybody can rally around. And I'm hopeful for it. So I guess maybe I was down a lot because of Midnight and some of the other things that the initial releases that came out, but I was encouraged at the end of the year. So that's how I would phrase where I'm at currently. I don't know.
Yeah,
Where do you go?
I mean, I think people. I'm in agreement totally with the Gold Label on the 125 price point through Tops. Like that is, people forget so quickly what prices were just 2 years ago when I was buying $350 boxes of Select. Like that is 125 is where it should be, man. So I love that you said hopeful, because that's kind of how the pricing has made me feel. And you can say what you want, like, oh, it's not about pricing, it's about the how nice the cards are. But like when you're buying these, it kind of is about the buy-in price. Like that makes everything easier to recoup your money. You don't have to get the crazy autos, like, and you're still able to get some type of value from that product. But as far as the future goes, like Topps Royalty is still technically a 2024 product. That looks pretty good to me, man. And I'm really excited to see that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be doing a video in the future about some of the designs and whatnot, but I think they're going to really start kind of ramping up. And I think this first year was kind of a test beta year, them kind of gauging the market and all that.
Well, and it wasn't even a full year, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying is 2025 is what I consider a full calendar year to do everything that Topps and Fanatics needs to do. Here I want to say one more thing too, just on the card component of UFC moving forward. I think Topps now has done a bang-up job, has done a great job of getting cards out and getting people's interest in UFC cards, especially with the relics and the autos that they do right after a fight or something like that. So I think if Topps now can continue that momentum too of constantly pushing those things out when major fights happen and they're able to get those cards and get autos and get relics that are actually meaningful relics. I mean, I think that enhances UFC as a whole, and I think we're getting back to the earlier days where relics and like the stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the show, like with Jones and Silva with that moment of truth relic card autograph. I think if you can do that even at a Topps Now standpoint, I think it makes a kick butt product, and those things sell out fast too. I don't know if
every
you've ever watched
time.
some of that, Zach. Yeah,
every time.
So there might be an uptick. I think they might uptick that more and try and do some more unique things. I want to get back to some like the fistographs and just like some crazy things that you can do with UFC stuff that you can't do with any other sport. And I think there's so much potential. Pieces of the octagon, that were in the cards in the past. I mean, there is so much cool stuff that that can be done with Topps. I just hope they invest in that part of it. as a whole. And I know collectors want it. I think those cards are super cool when they're done right.
Yeah. You brought up an interesting thing there about like fistos and unique ones, and it made me think of that new. Have you seen the glove design in
Oh yeah,
Finest?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of cool.
yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Absolutely.
And I think I want to say that's the first I've ever seen with the die cut glove image. I mean, obviously we have gloves like inside as a relic piece, but I don't know if I've ever seen an actual like glove image with the fighter superimposed. So hopefully they'll continue to kind of increase and do some interesting things with the cards. What about your thought on the number of products that they kind of have released this year? It's kind of been like once every 2 months, once every 3 months. Yeah, we had a little gap there in between, but kind of what's your
Yeah.
thought on that?
In my perfect world, I would say you want about 7 products a year. So that's probably what, one every 6 weeks ish, Zach. I
Yeah,
think if you can,
one and a half
you
months.
want, yeah, you want to give a product enough time to breathe and people to have interest in it, and for it to be, sit there for a second, and then you're moving on to the next product. So, and then have the focus totally on that next product. So, maybe if it's 7 or 8, I don't want to go too much into like, making it super big, but there could be
Right.
some variations of that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it was more of, let's say we do 6 or 7 or 8 hobby products, and then some retail and some maybe in between hobby and retail type stuff that is maybe a little different or a little variation on some of those things. We see that in like football and some other products, so that might be a possibility too. But I would say every 6 weeks, if you're seeing a new UFC product coming out or being talked about or it's forthcoming, I think those are where the hobby should be in terms of UFC. I don't know what your thoughts are on that front.
I think I agree. I think I'd be more around the 6 products a year mark. I don't like that they're doing the Noche box and the UFC, the New York one, the Mecca or whatever. I don't necessarily like those products. What's your thought on that?
I think we're probably going to disagree just a little bit.
Hmm.
I think special event products are kind of unique and different, and it maybe keeps the gap. So if there is a further gap or there is a delay in some type of release or something like that, I think those can be really good fillers. So the Noche product, I think when that came out, everybody was sort of fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Um, I think if you overdo it, that's where the problem becomes. So if you did like 2 of those a year, Zach. So let's say one every 6 months. I think you're doing really, I think it's unique and different, and it'll stand out and can fill a gap too if something is delayed or something like that. So that's probably where I would be on that whole front,
I
with
just
some
I
type of.
just don't I just don't
Go
really
ahead, go.
like. I get the Noche, right, because that's like a one, or he said it's going to be a one time thing. Who knows what it's actually going to end up being? But like super one off, first time it's ever been done. So to me, that product makes sense. But to then just do like a MSG drop, like there's been tons of fights at MSG. I don't necessarily understand why that's special. And then in the future, like how are they going to say, hey, we're at the Florida Dome or whatever, and then have a product from it. So to me, it doesn't really make sense from that perspective.
Well, I think what those products try and do is they try and get to the hardcore, really to the people that actually go to those events and
Mm.
are really hardcore UFC collectors and really invested, like down to the real core of like paying the big money to go to the event, want that super extra special thing that goes along with it. I don't think it takes away from anything, but I do agree with you. I do think that you can, if it just becomes a generality type thing of something special, and it's sort of like a random event or something like that, then it's not cool. But if it's like next, when this is taped, we're UFC 311 is this weekend. But I mean, if it was like UFC 400 or UFC
Yeah,
350 or
yeah.
something like where it's wrapped around something unique and special, that's where I think it's I really like to see something cool done. Put it that way.
Okay. I guess we're kind of in agreement then. Like I had no problem with the Noche box because to me it was a spectacle. It was unique. It did make sense. I guess I'm worried that they're gonna do like they did with the MSG one, and it's just gonna be like, hey,
Yeah,
we're in New York, let's make a product. But that's a
yeah,
good
we
point.
don't want that.
Like
Yeah, we
the
don't want.
UFC 300, if they would have had a product kind of tied around that, that would have been pretty sick. So I guess I guess I agree, but I disagree kind of a little bit as well.
Well, and probably we're both probably going to be wrong because look, the bottom line is going to be sales. So if they
Yeah, you're right.
they put out an MSG product, another product, or whatever it is, and it sells, they're going to
Yeah.
keep doing that line of thinking and putting those products out. So, but yeah, I personally would only be interested in something that's tied around a unique event that's kind of special and different, and only comes around once, and you want to sort of have cards from that particular event type thing.
Yeah, man, nice. Kind of off script here, but I wanted to pick your brain. So my 2020, since we're talking about 2024, 2025, my big card last year was the Habib first auto. Obviously, I was able to get it. Sick, awesome experience. So my big card for 2025 is going to be a Mahomes rookie. They call it the field level, and I kind of want the silver, but I'm kind of still undetermined on exactly what parallel I want to get. But I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of just Mahomes cards in general. Obviously, the Chiefs are dominating. They're playing really good this year. They play tomorrow as this is being filmed. Could potentially go for a 3x in a row champion. Never been done before. So what's kind of your thought on Patrick Mahomes cards?
I think you cannot go wrong buying Patrick Mahomes. I think that's the bottom line on all that. And look, even the origination of me getting back into the hobby was built around getting Patrick Mahomes rookie cards super cheap. I think the world of him. I think if he does the three-peat, it's going to be something amazing. Even if they end up losing this week or next week or
Yeah.
in the Super Bowl, it's still been an incredible run, and he's done more than any other quarterback that's currently active, anyways. And he's chasing Brady, so he's the only one that's chasing Brady. I think that needs to be some. So I think when we look back, so let's look 5, 10 years down the road, Zach, on something like a Patrick Mahomes. I really think, luckily, 2017 was a good print run in terms of not as much cards printed as there are now printed here in 2025. So you got decent pop reports on a lot of that stuff, and Patrick Mahomes, I think, is always going to be desirable. It's always going to be liquid. I don't think you're going to have a problem moving Patrick Mahomes cards. That's for sure. It's just a matter of getting into the right ones and holding on to them, and hope that he can continue his trajectory, up the GOAT scale in terms of things. But I will tell you, and you know that I'm a huge Brady. It's just that even if he ties Brady, Brady holds the tiebreaker. But I think that Patrick Mahomes will have done enough to where there's a legitimate argument, just like we have with Michael Jordan and LeBron
Yeah.
James. Just any GOAT conversation you have, as long as you're part of the conversation, your cards are going to be valuable. And I think Patrick Mahomes, his cards caught the right year that they needed to be, enough to be modern, enough to not be overprinted, to where it holds a lot of value. So I wish you luck on the journey there to get a Patrick Mahomes card. Having owned several and sold all of them, I think it's a fun card. I wish I had maybe one or two of them back. I'll probably get some back at some point. But he's one of the most solid investments you can make, I think, in the card market as a whole. I think he had his high, and now he's sort of stabilized. And when you start stabilizing your card prices, you know that your card is going to hold long-term value, and that's what every card collector wants. To be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
You want your cards to have long-term value. So
For sure.
um,
So I wanted to pick your brain on timing, right? Because like
yeah.
I've been looking at it for a while, honestly, probably since last year, and then they ended up winning the Super Bowl, and I was like, well, I can't do it now. I got to wait to see what happens. Do you think that is like a good game plan, or like you're saying, let's say if they lose in the playoffs, then we might see a dip. Will we not? If they win another Super Bowl, will it go up? Like, what's kind of your thoughts on like buy timing?
Oh, football is very unlike UFC. Like football and baseball, everything's there is so much rigid set schedule with card prices that makes it really super easy to sort of to hit the sweet spots of things. If Patrick Mahomes loses this weekend or loses Super Bowl or whatever, yes, the day after his card prices are going to go down. Now, is that the best time to buy Patrick Mahomes cards? No, because they're on their way down.
Hmm.
The best time to buy Patrick Mahomes or football cards in general is, I always say, in April. April, May, really early April, because everybody is so focused on baseball at that time. All the hype season is up for baseball. The season's just starting. Everybody cares about baseball. Nobody's caring about football because Super Bowl's over. It's been a month or two. The draft is coming up, but it's not like it's meaning anything. So April and June would probably be the two times that I'd be buying. And I look at April all the time for football cards, but April and June would probably be the two best times in the year to buy a Patrick Mahomes card,
Okay, perfect.
or any football card for that matter.
I like that, man. That's definitely something I'm gonna do. I'm gonna continue to kind of keep my eye on the market, see, kind of nail down exactly what parallel I actually want to get. I'm still saving a while, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it in that timeline. But at least I'll kind of be ready to strike if I do see something good that pops up.
And the silver that you brought up, silvers are always popular, just like gold and the other variations of those smaller things. So yeah, I think getting a silver, rookie Patrick Mahomes, you get in a good grade. I mean, or even get a raw and then get it graded yourself. I think you're going to be winning long term with Patrick Mahomes, no doubt. So. Yeah, and football's different too, Zach. Like when we talk about this UFC, you always wanted to like sell, and sometimes it is there, it does happen, but always that hype before the fight, and then the fight happens, and you're either selling the card before the fight or after the fight. It doesn't matriculate like it does in football or baseball or basketball. It's just like the hype season is always really regulated in those sports, and in UFC, it's just like you have the hype, but you don't have the sales per se that you would expect. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I know Conor McGregor's going to fight this year, most likely, and I'm sure he's going to get some hype and he's going to get some runway to build his cards up. But are they going to be selling for super big amounts? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's not like it is in other sports, which is unique. Once again, another unique thing with the UFC.
So. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Josh. It's almost been an hour. A lot of good stuff that we touched on in the video. Hopefully people can use you as kind of a resource and use some of your experiences to better their selling, kind of continue to make more sales, to save more money, to get bigger cards. So I appreciate you for coming on and kind of sharing everything with everybody.
Well, I appreciate you. And I would just say it's one thing to the UFC collector, I would say, try and use other sports to pay for your UFC cards. So flip other sports to pay for your UFC Grail cards and things like that, because I think that'll help your journey in the UFC card collecting as a whole too. So that's the only thing I would say as an advice. So,
yeah, that's a good tip. When I had Joe from Joe's Card Stash on, he actually mentioned that he is doing that. So that's kind of cool that you're recommending that, and maybe I'll take a stab. With maybe I watch a lot of basketball and a lot of football actually. So maybe I choose one of those sports and try and make something happen.
Well, Zach, and the great thing too is you're not attached to those cards or that sport too. So it sort of gives you that sort of lane to work in. You're like, great, I can make profit on this type stuff, and I don't even have to worry about being attached to it because it's something I don't even care about at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll give it to somebody who does care about it. So that's the detachment from everything on that front. I think is a huge mental component as well. So that's what makes it unique. But yeah, that's what my advice would be is. Leverage your sports knowledge to make money to help pay for your UFC Grail cards. Bottom line, and I think you've done a great job with what you've done with getting some huge Grail cards and historical cards on the UFC front.
Nice, brother. Thanks again for coming on. Thanks for watching, everybody.